What is up, every single personage? I'm Clayton, and you have entered my movie review channel. Congratulations. Today we are doing a Nolan ranking video. We have concluded and wrapped up our Nolan series, going through each of his films, reviewing them, rating them, breaking them down. So this is kind of the finale, doing a ranking video. If you guys have been following my channel for any length of time, you probably already know what my number one is going to be. Shouldn't be any surprise there when I reveal it. But the rest of them, and how I would rank them and how I'm going to arrange them, might be a little bit surprising. There might be a few here that come a little bit as a shock to you. So, but I'm excited to do this. Nolan, obviously one of the most premier and best directors out there today. So yeah, let's get into ranking his movies. Just as a disclaimer up front, this is my personal list. So if you disagree with some of them or think, oh, that one should be lower, this one should be higher, make your own list, okay? Your list is going to look different than mine. This is my personal list. So leave your list in the comment section. How would you rank them? Let me know. And let's get into my ranking of all 12 Nolan films. And I just want to say real quick before we get into them, he doesn't have a bad film. Okay, he doesn't have a bad film. So even my number 12, even though it's down here at the bottom, it's still a decent film. It's still not a bad film. It's his weakest film, in my opinion, as far as like my subjective viewing experience is concerned. It's the weakest viewing experience that I have with any of his films, but it's still a decent film. So, that needs to be said. All of his films are decent at worst to all-time great at best. So, yeah. Let's get into ranking the films. Starting from the bottom, we're going to go worst to best. So, starting with number 12, we have Dunkirk. Dunkirk, I gave 2.5 stars. I think it's a decent film. I'm not a big war film guy. And I just, at the end of the day, I'm about character and story, and I just don't feel like this film has the characters or performances to really buy me in to the film. So, not a bad film. It's decent. There's some great stuff in it, but it's the one I would come back to the least of Nolan's films. So, it's down here at the bottom at number 12. Moving on to number 11, we have Oppenheimer. His newest film that is still in theaters. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. 3-star film. I do like it. Okay, I do like it. I gave it 3 stars, which is still a positive review. I still had a positive viewing experience with it. There are things that were just incredible in it that I think Nolan was at his best. But again, as a film and as a viewer, in my viewing experience with the film wasn't as high as it is with some other films. So it's a historical documentary about the person Oppenheimer and his creation and development of the atomic bomb. So yeah, go check it out. It's still in theaters. Go see it. It comes in at number 11. Moving on to my number 10, we have Following. Now, I think Following is the film that I tend to see most commonly at the bottom for Nolan ranking videos. Other YouTubers and movie reviewers I've seen on YouTube tend to have Following, if not at the bottom, like one up from it. I have it at number 10, so obviously it's not the worst. I actually really like Following. I really do. I think this is a 3.5 star film. There's a lot of really good stuff in it. I really like the story. I like the characters. I'm invested with them. I'm engaged with them. I'm bought into what's happening. The biggest knock with following is always going to be the quality of the film. It's not technically the best film because Nolan only had a $6,000 budget. He didn't even have a studio backing him in this film. It all had to come out of his pocket. He made it with friends on weekends when they could get together and shoot. So it does stand out. It is noticeable, but overall, I still think this is a really good film, and I still have a really good time with it. It's 3.5 stars. I like it. I really like it. You can watch it for free actually on YouTube right now. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend it for at least one viewing, and you can just make your own rating and gather your own thoughts on it. But this is where following would sit at number 10. Moving on to number 9, we have Interstellar. Yes, now I know I'm going to catch some flack for this by my boy Brian Lomax, who's really high on Interstellar. And I respect it, but and it's a great film. It's 3.5 stars. Really good film. I do have a good time with it. There's some amazing things that Nolan does in this film, but it's just a really depressing film for me. Like when you think about it, Matthew McConaughey essentially has to watch his kids grow up. One of them he never gets to even see again, and the other the next time he sees his daughter is literally on her deathbed as she has her final moments, and now she's like decades older than he is. So that's a really sad and somber story, and that's not an experience that I care to come back to a whole lot. The film is a great film, but the feeling that Interstellar gives me at the end, a really depressing feeling. It's just not, that's not a feeling, an emotion that I care to experience a whole lot. So there's some powerful stuff in it, good acting, a great score, great visuals. It's a great film. It's just the films above this one do more for me personally in my viewing experience than Interstellar does. If you like it, great. I got no problems with it. But it is a great film. It's just, this is where it sits for me, number 9. Moving on to number 8, we have Memento. Memento, another 3.5 star film. I really like Memento and the reverse linear structure of this film. How the color scenes are from the subjective view and subjective perspective of our main character in the film, and kind of how he sees things, and then the black and white scenes are the objective reality of what actually happened. So I think that's an interesting structure to the film that Nolan does. It's a brilliant film. I do think once you're in on the trick and once you know what happens, it does kind of affect multiple viewings of Memento. I'm not as engaged with it on multiple viewings as I was the first time, but it's still a lot of fun. It's still entertaining. It's still really entertaining. I think the characters are great. The performances are great. It's still a really good film. It's just, would I bump it into 4-star tier? I wouldn't go quite there with Memento personally, but it's still, really good film. 3.5 stars. All 3 of these films, 8, 9, and 10, are all 3.5 star films for me. So they are kind of interchangeable, but right now, this is how I would structure between these 3. So Memento coming in at number 8. Moving on to number 7, we have Insomnia. Insomnia, our first 4-star film. I think this is a great film. I love Insomnia. This is definitely a film that I do come back to fairly often. I think the performances here by Al Pacino and Robin Williams are fantastic. Hilary Swank is amazing in the film. I love the story. I think there's a lot, philosophically speaking, to this film that I'm engaged in. I like the characters and the execution of the story and the performances of these actors with their characters. I think is just makes this film so entertaining and so fun for me. Not the most complex Nolan film. I think that's large part because he wasn't involved in the script here, but it's still shot like a Nolan film. You watch this film, you still get the feeling that you're in a Nolan film, and I like that about Insomnia. But yeah, 4-star film, love it. The last 15-20 minutes of it, it's just fantastic. So yeah, it comes in at number 7. Moving on to number 6, we have The Dark Knight Rises, another 4-star film. Great film, love this film. It is the weakest of the 3 Dark Knight trilogy films by Nolan Batman movies. I think it's the weakest, but it's still 4 stars. I still love this film. But there are a couple valid criticisms I have with Dark Knight Rises that I kind of talk about in my review. But a lot of the criticisms that I hear directed towards Dark Knight Rises do not hold up for me. I think a lot of people get really nitpicky with Dark Knight Rises. And some of the criticisms I've heard, I just think are just ridiculous because they have no weight to them, in my opinion. So yeah, it doesn't stop me from loving this film. I still love Dark Knight Rises. If you have it lower on your list, that's on you. But for me, I love it. I think it's a great ending to the Dark Knight trilogy. I love Tom Hardy's Bane. It's my favorite version of Bane throughout the history of that character and all the iterations of it. Tom Hardy's version of Bane is my favorite version of Bane. So yeah, it comes in at number 6. Great film. Love it. 4 stars. Moving on into my top 5. Number 5, I have The Prestige. I think The Prestige, personally, probably Nolan's most underrated film. What do you guys think? Do you think it's his most underrated? Do you think it gets the praise and recognition it deserves? I think it's his most underrated, man. I don't hear The Prestige brought up all that often in Nolan discussions, and I think it should be. This is a great film. 4.5 stars. So now we're going a notch above the 4-star tier. We're in 4.5 star tier now. The Prestige is just fantastic. The writing is brilliant. The plot twist at the end is perfectly executed. The performances by all the actors are great. Hugh Jackman turns in one of his best performances. Christian Bale is always money in what he does. Nolan really brings it in this film from everything. The writing, the directing, all of it is there. It's a great film. The Prestige is a film I never get tired of. I could throw it in right now and enjoy it. So, yeah, most underrated Nolan film. I think so, but what do you guys think? For me, it comes in at number 5. Moving on to number 4, we have Inception. Now, I love Inception, and it kills me to have to put it number 4, but it's in a Nolan ranking video, so it's just, I love Inception. Trust me, it's a 4.5 star film. I absolutely love it, but it's just the 3 films above it do a little bit more for me. But Inception is absolutely an incredible film. There's no question about it. I've seen it as number 1 on a number of people's list on YouTube, and I can respect it. I really can respect it. Inception is that good of a film. I love it. I think it's a beautiful story that's beautifully told through the visual means of storytelling. The characters are great. The pacing is great. The action is great. It's a great film. And it comes in at number 4, which to me seems low. But again, you're dealing with Nolan, and unfortunately, these movies have to be ranked. This is how I would rank them. All right, it comes in at number 4 for me. Moving on to number 3, Batman Begins. The first film in the Dark Knight trilogy. The film of all of these films, this is the one I've seen the most. I absolutely love Begins. So many great lines in it, so many great scenes in it. Christian Bale is fantastic as Batman and Bruce Wayne. I think this is the best superhero origin story ever put to screen. It's one of the best Batman movies ever made. It's one of my favorite Batman movies. It's one of my favorite Nolan movies. Sits at number 3 for me. I've talked about this movie ad nauseum. There's one problem that I have with this, that I've always had with this film, that keeps it out of the 5-star tier. But yeah, Batman Begins comes in at number 3. So we're into our top 2. You should already know what my number 1 is going to be, which only leaves one option for my number 2, which is, of course, Tenet. Tenet, this is a 5-star film. My top 2 films here are both 5-star films. Tenet is 5 stars, okay? Subjectively speaking, this is a perfect film. I love this film. I don't know why it's so low on so many people's list. I think it's fantastic. I don't think it's too hard to understand. I think people make it harder to understand than they should. If you can follow along with Inception, you can follow along with Tenet. You really can. It's no more complex than Inception. The first time I saw Tenet in theaters, I got it. And I've gotten it ever since. So, yeah. But the reason I love Tenet, I think, is different than the reason why most other people do. I love Tenet because it's a movie about survival. And it's a movie about, just finding something to hold on to. When you feel that you're in the bowels of hell and there's no way out, find an anchor. Find something to hold on to bring yourself out of that. And I think that's beautifully told and shown in this film. And I love movies like that. It hits home for me. I think this film, of all the survival films, is the best. When you incorporate the action and the characters and everything, I absolutely love Tenet. It's my second favorite Nolan film of all time. It's a 5-star masterpiece. But moving on to number 1, should be no surprise to anybody, The Dark Knight. I mean, what else was it going to be? This is, in my opinion, one of the greatest films of all time. One of the greatest Batman films of all time. It was my favorite film of all time for 14 years, until just recently. But yeah, there's nothing more to say about The Dark Knight. It should be number 1 on everyone's list because it is Nolan's absolute peak. Nolan at his best. The characters, the story, the action, the performances, the directing. It's just an absolute masterpiece. Love it. Will always love it. And it will always be my favorite Nolan film. 10 years from now, if Nolan gets in another 2 or 3 films, I can already guarantee you with absolute certainty The Dark Knight is still going to be my favorite Nolan film. The only thing that's ever topped The Dark Knight for me is another Batman film. So, yeah. there you go, guys. The Dark Knight, King of the Castle, King of the Hill. It is number one on my list for favorite Nolan films. That is my ranking. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your ranking in the comments section. And just to let you know what's coming up, I'm going to start a Mission Impossible series. So we're going to go through all the MI movies, all 7 of them. I'm going to do the same thing with the Nolan series. Going to break them down, review them, give my thoughts, my rating, and then we'll do a Mission Impossible ranking at the end. So thank you guys for watching. As always, until next time, kick it and rock on.